Good evening and welcome to the ME7 Podcast. Was Saturday the final now in the survival coffin, or can Neil Harris's men pull out a miracle when Rotherham come to town this Saturday? Tonight we discuss Saturday's loss in the South Coast against Portsmouth, the chairman's letter that he released the day before our biggest game in years, always the timing with our chairman, and potentially, we review obviously, or preview, should I say, the game that we've got against promotion chasing Rotherham on Saturday at Priestfield. Tonight, I'm joined by Owen Stanley and Lewis Browning. Good evening, gents. Lewis, we'll come to you first. You was at Fratton Park on Saturday afternoon. Give us your assessment of it.
Yeah, evening, everyone. Can't wait to be talking about this game again, said with sarcasm. But yeah, it was a frustrating one. I think everyone understands that we needed to get something from these last two games. And now it's looking like we're going to have to get something from this last game because we didn't pick anything up on Saturday. Poor defending for the first goal. I think Dave Tatunda dives in and then Ryan Jackson loses Ronan Curtis with a ball across the box. Ryan Jackson, makes up for it, I guess, scoring a goal, brilliant goal on the volley. Nice to be able to celebrate a decent goal, which we've not been able to do too many times this season. But just before half-time, obviously, tempers flared a little bit. Jackson misses the header, first of all. I'm not sure what he's doing. I've watched it back 100 times and then decides to sit on the floor. So Max Amer has to come across and then, it goes 2-1 to Portsmouth and Neil Harris is sent off in the melee, which I think is quite disappointing, really. But it happens. And then the second half, we never looked in it. I don't think many Jules fans thought we were going to get an equaliser, let alone a winner. Obviously, it went 3-1, and then we were pretty much out of it from then. And it was just a matter of looking at the clock and seeing how long we had left until the result was confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've obviously got a good record at Fratton Park anyway. But when you're travelling to Fratton Park with a side that haven't scored very many goals this season. 13 at home. I'm not sure how many it is away. They're effectively they're not really playing for anything. I think they're playing for 8th as such. It's disappointing that we could only we've obviously mastered the one goal, but the defending for the 3 goals. So it was quite frankly shocking, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's very poor. I think I said the other week, we only conceded 1 set-piece goal under Harris, and that was at Cheltenham, and now 2 in 3 games. I think every goal was really, really poor one to concede, a really easy goal to score from a Portsmouth point of view, and I think we perhaps saw, obviously Lewis know better than I've watched the whole game, but I've watched extended highlights back, a majority of the game back. It looked to me like probably the first time it looked like we actually given up under Harris. We sort of didn't really... Once the third one, when it looked like it was just mentally gone for us, and we were just hoping and praying for the full-time whistle to come a bit sooner so we can just get out of there and look forward to next week. But I think it was the sort of one of those performances that sort of epitomised where we are at the minute. And for every turn we've had these last couple of months where you think we might get out of it, like the wins at Accrington and Doncaster, it's all sort of coming full circle now, and we look to be just dangerously above that trapdoor. And obviously, as you said, we've only one striker. I mean, I know Dixon Peters is there as well, but he's just not this level, with all due respect. He isn't. That's why he didn't start. If he was, you'd throw him in when we don't have the strikers and makeshift replacement for Kelman, but he didn't do that, so it tells you all you need to know, I think, on that front. But with one striker and players in behind who Rees, we never know whether he's going to be fit or not for a start. I'm not sure if he was ever meant to play 90 minutes on Saturday. I'm not even sure if he did, but he's definitely one that's being monitored game time wise. Same very Keith as well. It's just a very depleted squad at a very bad time, and I think it's going to come full circle in the wrong way, I'm afraid.
Yeah, Lewis, Harris mentioned in his post-match comments that he feels that the third goal wouldn't have happened had Stuart O'Keefe been on the pitch. Do you go along with that? Do you feel that O'Keefe is kind of instrumental to this Gillingham side staying solid?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he played a little bit further forward at times, but in central midfield, I think he's key. He's probably my vote for player of the season, I think he was always the real captain, so to speak, in terms of leadership on the pitch when Kyle Dempsey was there, but now he's taken the role, in flying colours, really. He's been instrumental for us. I don't think he's fit at all. He's done half a game the last 2 games, but because of where we are in the season, he's obviously playing. As soon as I saw Dan Phillips warming up at half-time on Saturday, I knew it was going to be O'Keefe that was going off. It's unfortunate, but, he's probably fighting through pain to stay on the pitch. I don't think Dave Tutunda is a great defender. I think I'm right in saying he was the player that lost his man for the header from the set piece. So I'm not sure how much he can impact stuff like that. But in terms of organisation and stuff like that, I think Stuart O'Keefe's vital in our midfield. I know we've got a lot of midfielders. I don't get the whole thing playing Ollie Lee deep. I don't get that at all. Steve Lovell did it, and then Neil Harris has stuck with it. And yeah, I mean, that's a debate for another time probably, but he's had a shocking season, really. And I think Stuart O'Keefe being in there is a massive thing for us, and hopefully he can get some game time in the last game. Because even if he's not fit, you want to try and get him out there as much as you can in the last game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously said before kick-off that, and the club put it out that they'd lost the appeal with Charlie Kelman's red card, and I saw it online that a lot of fans basically were saying that we were in trouble and it was a big loss down to Charlie and things like that. In the grand scheme of things, Charlie has obviously done very well since coming back to the football club, but was it kind of a make or break getting a result at Saturday? My question is, would Charlie have made a hell of a difference at Fratton Park?
I think it definitely would have helped. It's not the sort of situation where you're missing the strikers. You can go to a 4-2-3-1 and bring a couple of wingers in. You don't have any of them fit either. So it's one of them. And as I said, you haven't really got a replacement up front who is ready to go into that team, at least with Kelman, although he's not going to score loads of goals. He knows his teammates. He knows everyone around him. He puts in the shift. He can make a difference. Would he have got a goal? I don't know. It's just one of them where you say, is it make or break? But we needed to win one of these 2 games, and it wasn't Saturday. So, and without him on this coming Saturday as well, with only one striker, it's make or break this Saturday, isn't it? We're not going to have him for that either. So, we could well end up going down, and people could point to saying, well, if we had Kelman for these 2 games, maybe it would have been different. Who knows? 3 have had, Lloyd and Carriol fit these past couple of months. It might not even be in the situation, but it's all ifs and buts, really. We've got what we've got. It's not, a squad that has an availability that most League One managers will look at and think, I wish I had that. But it is what it is now, unfortunately. And, I didn't think it would get turned over, the appeal. I thought it was. I've watched it quite a few times. I still don't really know my opinion on it, to be honest. I think it's just one of those weird things that you probably see once in 1,000 games, if that. And I think it's hard to go back on a decision that you make like that in the game. But, we know we haven't got him now, so we've got to do what we can to make the best of it. And if we can, great. If we can't, then,
Lewis, I mean, a lot of people have obviously said about Harris doing an incredible job, and obviously quite rightly he has. He's done a very, very good job with the squad that he's got. But I pose a question to you in terms of, do you think, in the grand scheme of things, that we deserve to go down in because obviously the last few games where we've had numerous chances to get out of this position under Harris, where we've drawn at home to Wimbledon, we've thrown a 2-goal lead away at Cheltenham, we have then not beaten Fleetwood. We've had numerous opportunities to get ourselves out of this situation. We've then obviously thrown a point away at Stadium of Light. We've had numerous chances to get out of this under Harris, and we haven't. Who do you think that is to blame in that situation where, forget about previous management, under Harris and these players, we've still had a numerous amount of chances to get out of this, haven't we? And we've blown it.
Yeah, I mean, you can always look at points now at this stage of the season where they could have got points. I mean, you said to forget Evans, but you think of Bolton away, and obviously you think of the Wimbledon game. Monday was incredibly frustrating for me because I don't feel like personally we tried to win the game towards the back end of the game, and I think we were happy for a point, which I found so bizarre. But yeah, as you say, throwing the leads away and dropping points is frustrating, but I suppose you've got to remember the squad we've got. I don't know how Saturday is Saturday how Saturday has affected this stat, but Harris was saying last week that before the weekend games, if the season had started on February the 1st, we'd have been 12th, which is obviously mid-table with a poor team. Which I don't think anyone can argue how thin the squad is, how it's nowhere near what Harris would want in terms of the squad. So yeah, you can point fingers and think of games such as Wimbledon where we should have won, such as Fleetwood where we should have gone and won. Throwing points away, it's frustrating, but I'm not saying because he's done such a good job you can't pick at these flaws, but I think you can probably excuse it, but it's still frustrating as it can be.
Owen, obviously the day before the Portsmouth game, the chairman decided to release the letter that we've all been not waiting for, but we've been expecting. What did you make of the letter that he released on Friday?
I think half of it was more things that I'm not really that interested in, with all due respect, like the school and the canteen and the pizza bars or whatever it was. But the one thing I did pick up on, which was the good thing to hear, is that the embargo is going to be gone for the start of next season, which, everyone's been looking for some clarity on that basically all season. It's been a case of when's the embargo finish? It's not an embargo, but it is an embargo, but it also isn't an embargo, without really having a clear idea about when it's going to finish, how much we're owed. But he does seem pretty adamant that it's going to be done by the end of the season, which, we would have liked it to be sorted out a bit before now, but thankfully it will be done by next season, because I think that was the one thing that sort of hanged over everyone's heads when Harris came in. Is like, it's all good having him in, but if he's going to be coming in next season when we're still under an embargo, regardless of what league we're in, it's going to take an effect. So that not being there definitely helps. He said, I think the thing is with Scally's letter, he sort of builds a reputation with these and all his chairman's chats. So a lot of the things he says you sort of don't take as gospel, if you like. I know there's a big bit about certain people being banned if they said this or that or whatever else, and all of this sort of stuff. But my main takeaway from it was just the embargo. That's what I went looking for straight away when I read through it. I'm not gonna lie, I did only skim read it because he did write about 10,000 words or whatever it was, or 19-page document, and I was like, no thanks, I'll just skim. But it is a good job that he actually put it out in the end, which is good. And my main takeaway was that the embargo is going to be over, which is fantastic. And lo and behold, his car didn't cost £80,000. So there you
go. Lewis, what was quite interesting was that there was a 2-page of the 19 pages of basically how he very much dislikes Steve Evans now, and very much the factor of that he should have let him go when he had the chance, and that still to this day that he regrets that. What do you think? There's more to meets the eye, or do you think he went on for too long? How do you feel about that situation when you read it?
Yeah, I was interested before I read it because I was seeing people saying, well, first of all, I went to the theatre Friday night, came out, saw that he'd released the letter and thought, brilliant timing, as everyone did. I thought, I'm going to have to go home and read this now. No one really wanted to, but it's something you got to do. And yeah, people were saying about how he'd sort of taken a lot of anger out on Steve Evans. And I was like, okay, I'm looking forward to reading it. Sat and read it with my dad. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. He definitely should have been let go earlier. I think everyone can agree on that. We've rejected an approach for Stevenage earlier on in the year. And then, we've sacked him and he's gone to Stevenage anyway. So that could have been a different situation. I think the main takeaway I have from it is that everyone knew what was going to happen. I said to so many people throughout Evans' tenure, everyone, we might get a couple of good years, and we had a good couple of years. Unfortunately, one of them was behind closed doors, and the other one was cut short. But we had 2 10th place finishes, which is good. This year, under Evans, was absolutely horrible. Probably the worst times I've had as a Gills fan. under Evans. I think everyone knew you might get a good couple of years, but it's going to all come falling apart. And that's what happened. And Scally seems surprised that that's happened when everyone sort of knew that was going to happen at some point. And yeah, I mean, it's fair enough to him for regretting not doing it earlier. I think everyone could sort of see that now in hindsight. It's interesting that he said that how low it drove the club, Evans being around. And if he's seeing that, why has he not made that decision earlier? But yeah, he's taken out on Evans. If he felt like he had to say, that's fair enough. We're not behind the scenes every day. We don't see how it was. So yeah, maybe it was like that, and maybe in hindsight now he's made that decision. But I think he definitely should have made it earlier, and he knows that. And I think it's probably obvious that he should have done that at the time too.
I think what struck me the most was that within that 2-page document that he mentioned about Evans was that he mentioned that the budget was the highest it has ever been at Gillingham Football Club. And what struck in my mind was that doesn't coincide with how poor the squad that had been put together by Steve Evans. It didn't make any sort of sense. Was that you look at the player recruitment that Steve Evans had done, but then you look at Paul Scally's comments of the highest budget, and I was sitting there thinking, and I've still been thinking it now. I was thinking, but surely Steve Evans, who has gone and got numerous promotions out of this league, who knows good Football League players, would not have put such a poor League One squad together as it's been put together this season if the budget was as high as it's ever been. It didn't really make any sense, Owen. And do you think that then is more to meet the eye than what he's released in that document?
Well, I think there's two ways of looking at it. I don't really believe it's the biggest budget we've had since however long. I don't really think that. But at the same time, you look at some of the players Evans has brought in, even in the good years where he's brought in, likes of Graham, Dempsey and Oliver. With all of them, he's also brought in the likes of Usi, Say and Lee Hodgson and all these players as well. So you can definitely point out that some of his recruitment has been quite poor, especially the load of players that we've been left with this year who just, with all due respect, aren't up to standard. But he has also been able to bring in a couple of players that have gone on to do well. But in terms of the budget, I can't think that it is the highest budget, because especially considering after every game, win, lose or draw, it was always, we've got the worst budget in the league. We've got one of the worst 2 budgets in the league, etc., etc. And I don't think he'd say that constantly every time if it wasn't true. And 2, I think surely Scally would be getting at him eventually saying, can you please stop saying that in interviews 24/7 because it's not true. But it's not like we had, especially this season, I wouldn't really say we had not so much a marquee signing within our budget, I suppose, but it's not. Well, if you had a half decent budget in League One, you'd expect to get better players than the ones we bought in this year. But I find it hard to believe that we had, we had a budget that was that good for this level, or that good for us as a club in terms of what we're used to, especially considering you look through Steve Evans' career. He's always done well on a budget. Peterborough in League One, you're always going to get a decent backing, and he's been successful. Maybe successful at Gills is obviously 10th, which he did, but I'm just not sure I particularly buy into the idea that he had a like greater budget here. Also, I'd just like to very quickly point out the thing that Lewis mentioned about Stevenage. He says he had the approach on Stevenage that we rejected. Now, I'm guessing he rejected it because he thought it wasn't good enough compensation. But I do wonder, if you ask Scally now, looking back, why don't you just take it because you've lost him for nothing anyway? And we're probably paying off a lot of his contract towards the end of it as well. So it's not really turned out to be a good financial move there. And we also could have got Harris in earlier and maybe not been in the situation. I mean, it's all hindsight, obviously, but that was something that didn't really make too much sense to me.
Yeah, I think some of the positives that obviously come out of the letter was the marketing side of it. I thought obviously the partnership that you mentioned about the KMFM that they are going to start sharing a lot more of the things going on in and around the club, a lot more on their radio stations, which I think we all listen to the radio at some point, and the local radio, BBC Radio Kent and KMFM and whatever, and you hardly hear the football club mentioned. It might be a one-off game where there's a ticket deal or whatever, but apart from that, it's never very rarely mentioned. So I think that's a massive move. I think also the side of what he plans to do with the factory, the events that are going on in the football club are all positive things. I think now, rather than words, I think the biggest thing now to come out of that letter is that we've seen these letters happen a numerous amount of times under the chairman, but we've seen no actions put in place. I think that is the biggest thing, is that we need to start seeing things actually put in place in the football club now. I think the fact of the matter is that it's shown against Fleetwood on Monday, Easter Monday, that the support is still there for the team wherever they are in the league. If you do a ticket deal and you market it right, the fans come through the gate. And so I think that is the biggest eye opener that the chairman needs to look at. Lewis, do you agree with that? That whatever, wherever the club is in the league, I think the club has got so much more potential that if you market things right, you will get people through the gate.
Yeah, look, we're the only football league club in Kent, and Kent's not a small county, and to have 4,000 in the ground every week isn't good enough, really. As you say, the club has a lot of potential. There's so much more that could be done. I can't remember the attendance off the top of my head, but 8,000 was it Monday-ish?
1,400, yeah.
Pretty much double what we've been having, and the support is there. I mean, it wasn't great football that they saw, but going down, for me anyway, going down at the weekend to see your team with your friends and your family, it's great, and I don't see why people interested in the club wouldn't want to do that. So, you could do more of these deals. You've got to be aware of season ticket holders, as has rightly been said. But if you do more of these deals, then hopefully you'll get the attendance up, and that's the thing that Harris has made very clear that he wants to do as well during his stay.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So let's move on to Saturday then. 12:30 kickoff against Rotherham, the final game of the season. It effectively looks like one that, I mean, it is the toughest game we could have possibly asked for, bar Wigan, going into that final game. That we need something. We need a positive result on Saturday. Owen, how do you think, in your opinion, it's going to go?
Well, it says a lot, doesn't it, that talking about Paul Scally is more uplifting than talking about this game, isn't it? I can't get away from the fact I think we'll lose, because I think regardless of what Rotherham do tomorrow, I think if they win tomorrow, they guarantee promotion. But then I believe they're only, I think it might be a goal, maybe even 2 goal difference away from Wigan, so they could realistically still catch them on the final day to win the title. So whatever their result tomorrow, they'll have something to play for. And I think when it comes down to it, they're just going to have too much trust, and I just don't see it. I know in certain games, the likes of Sheffield Wednesdays and Wickhams, we've been able to be quite resolute in defence and hold out. But I think in a game of this magnitude, and you saw how much it got to us on Easter Monday, where we couldn't fashion anything going forward, I think we're going to have to win the game. I think, because the thing is that we look at other results. I think Morecambe will lose to Sunderland, but I wouldn't be surprised if Fleetwood got something at Bolton, just purely because Bolton had nothing to play for. And Wimbledon could still catch us as well, by the way, which is quite damning. But I don't have much confidence going into it. I think we'll get beat, unfortunately, and I think that'll be curtains.
Lewis, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm trying to remind myself to try and be upbeat, because it's not a happy topic at the minute. But I think, unfortunately, the same. I think, as Owen touched on, games such as Sheffield Wednesday, Sunderland, we held them for quite a long time as well. I can't really see it happening. It feels like we've literally just hit mental fatigue now, and our defensive record that we've sort of prided ourselves on, I guess, under Harris since he's come in is starting to falter a bit. I think Tutonda and Jackson have struggled. Obviously, they struggled at the weekend, and Harris clearly doesn't like them as a combination, because he's tried to put McKenzie in there when he can. I'm not sure if McKenzie will be back, but Tutonda was struggling as well. And then Conor Masterson went to left back against Portsmouth. You could maybe point to a change in formation, but then you're perhaps leaving yourself a bit more exposed at the back. But yeah, I think we need a miracle, because, as Owen said, we do need a positive result. We are in the bottom 4, and unless Fleetwood get hammered both games, we're not going to take them on goal difference, and you can literally rule that out. So yeah, we need a point and Fleetwood to lose both, or we need to win and see Morecambe lose, or something like that. But as you said, James, earlier, it's not a great game to have, and Rotherham, unfortunately, are still fighting for something as well. So I can't see it being positive for us, but hopefully it will be.
Owen, how do we look at this situation? Because obviously we've gone down to the final day before in this league, where we obviously ended up getting. It was a different situation when we went down there. We've only got about a minute to wrap this up, minute and a half. Obviously, yeah, it was a final day when we got beat at Wickham, where it looked like we weren't going to go down, and of course we did. Do we look at this one, Owen, where Harris is giving absolutely everything possible, and it's just kind of hit somewhere that it's unfortunate, or is it going to be frustrating?
Yeah, I think it's the fatigue. I think when you have a limited squad anyway, when you're having to play the same players, you have to play 90 minutes week in, week out, then you have injuries as well, which doesn't make it any easier. I think we have reached a ceiling now. I don't think we could have asked for a much more difficult game other than, I suppose, Wigan, just because they're the only team ahead of them. But yeah, I think the saving grace is, I suppose, you don't go into this game with much expectancy, so you're not going to be that, upset or angry by the end of it because you probably saw it coming. But this is Gillingham after all. We are one of those sides who can pull something out of nothing with no logical reason. So hopefully this week is going to be one of those occasions. I'll let Lewis get in just before we wrap up.
Yeah, Lewis, go on in quickly.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. We've got to try and win the game. I don't think a point's going to be enough, so we'll go for it. We'll see what happens at Fleetwood tomorrow, and then fingers crossed by the next show we'll be safe. Let's
wait and see. Can Gilles pull off a miracle in ME7 on Saturday afternoon? We'll have to wait and see. For now, good night.